Breeding is a simple mechanic in Minecraft. You take your food and feed it to two mobs and they create a baby. But when you want to breed on a large scale, that's when it becomes a challenge. But that challenge is exactly what we're here to do today, because we're not just breeding a couple hundred or even a few thousand mobs. We're here to breed 1 million mobs as quickly as we possibly can. So let's settle in and figure out exactly what this will take. So far in this world, we've only bred less than 4,000 mobs, which is kind of crazy considering I think I've done quite a lot of farming in this world. So to do this, we're going to need a base of operations. And what better way for a breeding farm than to make a giant Minecraft bed? So I think we're going to make it in this zone, and we're definitely going to need a lot of materials for that, so let's figure out what all that's going to take. In Minecraft, there are 22 mobs that you can breed. But I really only need one to make this farm a reality, and I decided to go with the sheep because it's kind of the iconic Minecraft mob. And there's probably some that would be easier to do this whole project with, but you can't beat icons. So with sheep in mind, our plan for this project is to make the largest villager wheat farm I've ever seen. That way I can sustain constant 24/7 sheep breeding, and to do that, I'm going to need to have wheat flow next to my player, so I'm constantly picking it up, while I also have a full stack in my hand that can breed. So I'm going to need the sheep to be constantly flowing next to me as well, and because there's a 5-minute cooling breed down, they need to have enough space to travel between breeds. So I'm going to have probably 2 large farms with this, and it's definitely going to be quite the project to build those, but as we get the materials, it should start to come together. I am a little worried about the lag this project might make with having a couple hundred villagers, constant wheat and seeds always flowing around, as well as hundreds of sheep, but that's probably a problem for later. So for my materials, redstone was a very big part of it, which is why I made that witch farm, and that was actually the first witch farm I've made in probably 12 years, so I'm glad it worked out, even though they definitely are a lot better than they were back then when you had to build a whole hole and dig the whole chunk out. Basically it was a lot easier, but we also had to get all of our concrete, all the different woods, a bunch of dirt for the actual farm, and then a bunch of iron because there's going to be a lot of buckets and everything else involved with this. But with all of our materials on hand, we are finally able to get building, right after this annoying little creeper explosion. Now the actual bed is nothing you haven't seen before. I tried to copy just a basic Minecraft red bed, and maybe you haven't seen it at this size and scale before, or at least I couldn't find any maps out there that I could copy, so I actually had to go make this myself. For me, this entire project started back in January, so it's been quite a few months, and it was actually made at a time when I was traveling quite a lot for work. So I made this giant Minecraft bed while at hotels for the most part. So it's a very good thing that I chose a single player game and not something that required good internet. For the actual villager farm part of this, I'm just going to go with some basic Minecraft knowledge, since I really don't want to come up with some fancy redstone design. So I just made the basic block where you have one villager in there with wheat to farm, and then just expanded it another 220 times. The basic premise of the farm is actually pretty simple. You just need water every few blocks so that the wheat doesn't go away. You need a composter to be in the area so the villager has a job. And you want to try to put some trapdoors around the composter so that villagers don't make bread with the wheat. One way to also help with that is make it so villagers don't pick up the wheat, which is something I'm going to try later. With the farm utilities in place, we were actually able to start making the villager breeder. And this was just another simple design where I just went and grabbed a few villagers from a nearby village, which was actually a reason that we made this whole farm in this area, so that the villagers were nearby. I farmed many hours of wheat and carrots and just other general stuff so that I could make the villagers farm and breed even quicker. And I just sat back and waited for a few hundred villagers to be made. But I wasn't just sitting idle during that. You can't just sit around and wait for villagers to breed. So I went out and did what makes you kind of the ultimate Minecrafter. I made a netherite hole before lighting up the area real quick. Then it was time to start tilling this whole farm ground. And that netherite hoe was actually nowhere near enough. I just kind of did that for the clip and achievement. I went through the netherite hoe and about 3 or 4 more diamond hoes at the same time. After all that heavy block placement, we needed a change of pace, so I switched to the redstone heavy part of this with making the collection system. And so I needed to find one that would do that fast enough, since wheat is going to constantly be flowing in, and I don't want to have the wheat sitting there for a long time, so I can't have the minecarts just sitting at the end unloading as it goes. So I took one of the end concrete dupers that I used a few videos ago and just multiplied it to fit this whole system, which meant I needed a couple hundred of them. And that's definitely going to make a lot of lag, but I think it worked pretty well. And it's also very resource intense, which is why I needed all of the different like observers, dispensers, and everything else. But we threw everything together, threw the minecarts into the farm, and it almost worked on the first try. We just made a few tweaks, but then it started to work. Once this farm's going, we're going to have a near limitless supply of seeds, but for now, we're going to need to farm a few 100,000 of them. So we used this quick little automated farm and just kind of sat there for a few nights, really just farming away. And one of the big reasons I need all these seeds is the 220 or so villagers I'm going to drop into this farm. I want to fill their inventories with seeds so that they don't pick up wheat. And then I placed all the seeds into the farm and we were ready to go. It's not often that you see villagers raining from the sky, but that's exactly what we saw here when I decided to empty out the villager farm down into the actual wheat farm. And as the villagers dispersed to fill this whole space, I decided just to watch it a little while and see if everything's working. And luckily it did. The collection system was getting all the items down into the path. So now it's time for stage 2 to build the sheep farm part of this. So I started by going into a creative world and just finding out how many blocks does a sheep need to travel for it to travel 5 minutes. And I needed it to be a closed loop, so that's what I built into this. And it took about over 100 blocks, so I need to transport each sheep at least 100 blocks after it gets bred. And with that in mind, I tested like 6 different designs, each of them just doing a quick test to see how many breeds I can get in an hour in a creative world, and I finally came up with my final design. So I had my material list and was able to get out going. But first I had to break down that villager breeder. And as you could see from that material list, it's not going to be too intensive of a farm. I just needed a lot of ice and glass and signs and water. And not to mention patience. when the frame of the structure was in, I was able to get all the signs placed down and then all the water within the signs. And another key piece of this farm, lava. There's going to be 1 million baby sheep coming out of this thing, and I do not want all of those to stay alive and lagging the world. So I need a way for them to die without killing the adult sheep. So I just had this 1 block gap in the farm at a few places with lava there, so that the sheep would just go in and die. And with the farm all built, it was time to get the sheep in place. So I went out into a nearby meadow and just put a few sheep in a boat before flying on over to the farm. We spent a few hours breeding them, and by a few I mean a few nights, but we got a couple hundred sheep in place and we were able to break them down into the farm, which should be enough. And with both parts of this farm built, it was time to give our first test and see how many sheep we could actually breed. And the numbers were good, but they were nowhere near the 100,000 I got in creative mode, so I needed to make quite a lot of tweaks to this whole thing. And really all those tweaks ended up doing was make lag, but I didn't know that at the time. But let's give you an idea of how this whole farm actually works. So underneath the wheat farm, I have this whole rail collection system that goes to the end where the minecart gets broken down by these lava cauldrons and all the items explode into this water template. From there, it goes to a sorting system where I sort out all of the wheat, and because there's a lot of wheat, I needed like 8 or so sorters. And then all of these get thrown into a dispenser that is able to, with a clock, just shoot everything into a new water stream. And that water stream then flows until it hits my player. After all the other items like bone meal and bread get dispensed into a different area and all leftovers just thrown into a fire, you can see that the items and the wheat just go flowing right by me, and everything I don't pick up goes up into this water stream where it then gets crafted into hay blocks just so I don't need 1 million chests here. And thank God for the autocrafter once again. But with that, it's time to start what became a multi-month just AFK session where I stand there with my mouse clicked and it breeds sheep. And right around here is actually where I hit day 5,000 in this world. And a lot of that is from AFKing and this farm and the pigment farm and all the other farms I've made. But I've also had quite a lot of projects in this world. So thank you everyone that's watched so far of these videos. And if you've liked it so far, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on what you'd like to see next. And let's get back to breeding. Because after a few more 100 days, we hit 500,000 per sheep. We are halfway to our goal. One thing I noticed this whole time is that the lag is really bad and probably slowing me down way more than I wanted it to. And probably I have more sheep in this farm than I need, and more villagers for that matter, but for now let's just stick with killing out some of the sheep. After that, we quickly hit 750,000 animals bred. Before hitting our goal of 1 million animals bred. Which, whoa, what a journey. And what better way to celebrate than by killing all the sheep in this farm. We hopefully won't need them again. I can't imagine there's ever going to be a need to breed more animals than we just did. So, we gotta get rid of them. No witnesses. We tidied up the project by putting a cover onto the bed, just so that it looks like a completed project whenever I fly by here in the future. And we did it. We hit the goal of 1 million mobs bred in Minecraft Hardcore. I haven't seen a challenge like this before out there on YouTube. If you have, leave me a link or tell me who to search so I can go see how they did it. And if you think you can come up with a better design, let me know. Or if you have any ideas on how I could take this even further, let me know that too. And thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. And quick side note, the Enderman did a number on the surrounding environment here.